Welcome back to Prep Forge. This is the final episode of our container trilogy. We packaged apps with Docker, we orchestrated them at scale with Kubernetes, and today we meet the simpler alternative, Docker Swarm. Here's the pitch. Docker Swarm is a container orchestrator, like Kubernetes, but it's built right into Docker itself, and it's dramatically simpler to set up and run. If Kubernetes felt like a lot, Swarm gives you the essentials: clustering, scaling, self-healing, and rolling updates with a fraction of the complexity. In this video, we'll cover the Swarm services, the routing mesh, scaling, updates, stacks, and finally, the big question: Swarm versus Kubernetes. Let's get started. Let's start with why Swarm exists. In the last episode, we saw how powerful Kubernetes is, but that power comes at a cost: complexity. Kubernetes has a steep learning curve, many moving parts, pods, services, ingress, controllers, and it often needs a dedicated team just to operate. For a huge platform, that's worth it. But what if you just have a handful of services on a few machines and you want orchestration without the overhead? Standing up a full Kubernetes cluster would be using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Docker Swarm is the answer. It turns a group of Docker machines into a cluster with a single command and gives you the core orchestration features without the steep climb. Concept 1. What Docker Swarm actually is. Docker Swarm, or Swarm mode, is orchestration built directly into the Docker engine. There's nothing extra to install. If you have Docker, you have Swarm. You turn a single machine into a Swarm manager with one command, Docker Swarm, in it. Then you join other machines as nodes with a token. That's it. You now have a cluster. Because it uses the same Docker commands and the same compose files you already know, the learning curve is tiny. That built-in, batteries-included simplicity is Swarm's entire reason for existing. Concept 2. The Swarm itself. A swarm is made of two kinds of nodes, just like Kubernetes, but simpler. Manager nodes run the control logic. They hold the desired state, schedule work, and coordinate using the Raft consensus algorithm to stay in sync, so you run an odd number, like 3. For high availability. Worker nodes just run your containers. A manager can also act as a worker. Compared to Kubernetes, there's no separate act, no scheduler component to manage, no controller manager. The manager node does it all. Fewer pieces, less to break, less to learn. Concept 3. Services and tasks. In Swarm, you don't run individual containers. You create a service. A service is the definition of your app. This image, this many replicas, these ports, the desired state. When you run Docker service create with 3 replicas, Swarm creates 3 tasks, and each task is a single running container placed on some node in the cluster. If that sounds like a Kubernetes deployment creating pods, it's the same idea. A service is to a task what a deployment is to a pod. You declare the service, Swarm schedules the tasks. Concept 4. The routing mesh. Here's one of Swarm's nicest built-in features, the routing mesh. Suppose your service publishes port 8000 with 3 tasks spread across 3 nodes. With the routing mesh, a request to port 8000 on any node in the Swarm, even a node not running a task, is automatically routed to one of the healthy tasks and load balanced. You don't configure a separate load balancer, it's built in. So you can point your external load balancer at every node, and Swarm handles getting the request to a running container. Simple, and it just works. Concept 5. Scaling and self-healing. Scaling and self-healing work exactly the way you'd hope declaratively. To scale, you run Docker service scale, changing 3 replicas to 10, and Swarm launches 7 more tasks. And Swarm, like Kubernetes, is constantly reconciling desired versus actual state. If a container crashes, or a whole node goes down, the manager notices the actual count has dropped below the desired count and schedules replacement tasks on healthy nodes. You get the same self-healing guarantee as Kubernetes from the same declarative model, just with less to configure. One thing to note, Swarm does not have built-in autoscaling based on CPU. That's a feature where Kubernetes pulls ahead. Concept 6. Rolling updates. Deploying a new version is a first-class feature. You run Docker service update with a new image, and Swarm performs a rolling update. It replaces tasks in batches. You control how many at a time and how long to wait between batches, so the service stays available throughout. If the new version starts failing, Swarm can automatically roll back to the previous version. Zero downtime deploys and safe rollbacks, built in with a single command. Again, the same capability as Kubernetes, reached far more simply. Concept 7. Stacks. Remember Docker composed from the Docker episode 1YAML file describing a multi-service app? Swarm reuses it. A stack is a composed file deployed across the whole swarm. Swarm spreads all those services across the cluster as services and tasks. This is the payoff of Swarm's design. The exact same composed file you use for local development can deploy your whole application to a production cluster. No new manifest language to learn. Concept 8. Networking and secrets. A few more essentials, all built in. Overlay networks let containers on different physical machines talk to each other on one virtual network, and, just like Docker, they find each other by service name. Secrets securely store sensitive values, like passwords and keys, and deliver them to only the services that need them. And configs do the same for non-sensitive configuration files. These are the same concerns Kubernetes handles with services, secrets, and config maps, provided here with the simple, familiar Docker tooling you already know. Concept 9. The big question: Swarm versus Kubernetes. So, the big question: Swarm or Kubernetes? Choose Docker Swarm when you want simplicity, a small to medium deployment, a fast setup, and you already know Docker and Compose. It gives you clustering, scaling, self-healing, and rolling updates with almost no learning curve. Choose Kubernetes when you need massive scale, advanced features like CPU-based autoscaling, fine-grained control, and a huge ecosystem of tools, and you can afford the operational complexity. The honest truth for interviews: Kubernetes has won the industry as the default. Most production teams use it, but Swarm remains a genuinely good choice for smaller setups where its simplicity is a feature, not a limitation. Match the tool to the scale of the problem. And that's Docker Swarm, and the end of our container trilogy. Swarm is orchestration built into Docker, a cluster of managers and workers, running services made of tasks, load balanced by the routing mesh, scaled and self-healed declaratively, updated with safe rolling deploys, and deployed from the very same compose files you already use. It's the simple orchestrator, and often exactly the right one. Across 3 episodes you've gone from a single container to a Kubernetes cluster to Swarm, the full picture of how modern apps are packaged and run. If this series helped, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and good luck in your interview.